Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to make replacement foam for your Dagobah playset. There should be a ring down here. Your foam's probably all deteriorated and falling out. You'll have to clean all that old sticky foam out if you still have any in there from the original. Thing about this ring is you want to pull up evenly. Don't pull up on one end or you'll break the tabs. Just kind of pull up evenly. Some of them may be stuck in pretty hard. So just be real careful with it. You don't want to break those tabs. Just kind of work it out. There you go. So you got 5 different pegs on there. They're not missing any. And we're going to need a piece of foam that's about 5 inches by about 3.5. And then you can cut it round if you want to, but you don't need to necessarily. It can be square because you're not going to see it under here. But you want to make sure you got enough room that it doesn't tear when you put holes in it for these to go through. So just 5 by 3.5 is usually pretty good. The kind of foam I use is this foam you get for cushions, or you can get it at Hobby Lobby or Walmart or wherever. I got this at Walmart. I think it was $12 for like 4. And you need about this much of one. So I mean, this will go a long way. You can also use it to make your replacement foam for your Death Star trash compactor playset. And if you have a Palitoy Death Star, you can make it the foam for the trash compactor on it also. So go ahead and open this up and get one piece out. That's all we're going to need. I'm sorry about the lighting. I'm going to do this outside so I don't make a mess. Lighting's kind of harsh right here, but when I get outside it'll be better. So we just need like one piece of this. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this in here, and then I'll go outside and the lighting will be better. Alright, so get you a Sharpie and kind of measure it off. Lighting's horrible, I'm sorry. Get some stuff out of here. This is my work area right by the garage door. It don't have to be perfect, just good enough you can kind of tell where you need to go to. So it don't have to be perfectly straight. I try to get mine pretty straight just because what I have left, it kind of makes it a little easier to do other projects and stuff with your leftover. Okay, I usually take an old catalog or magazine or something, junk mail. I keep those before I recycle them. I'll throw them in the paper recycle eventually, but you get one that's pretty thick. I use it for cutting board. When it's all, you can tell I've used this a bunch already. It's got cuts all in it, but once it's all just shredded, I'll put in the recycle. I got a brand new sharp box cutter knife here. This is kind of tricky. If you have some of those really good shears that you can get at like Harbor Freight and stuff, they'll cut through clothes, like medical people use them, EMTs, and they'll cut like through cloth and everything. Those work really good, but I can't find my pair right now. I need to buy another set. I think people borrow them and don't bring them back sometimes. Alright, so if you get a good fresh box cutter though, you can get a real good cut, a real clean cut. So this will serve a purpose for now. If you were going to do a bunch, I'd get some of those scissors though, especially if you're doing trash compactor foam, because you have to come in the little chunks. You feel like cutting with those. I'll do another video on how to make those. But it's pretty much the same procedure. So that's pretty good, clean cut. It doesn't need to be perfect because you're not going to see the edges of this anyway. It's going to be up under the playset. It'll be up under here, so you're not going to see it. And it looks kind of thick, but when you poke your holes in it and push this back on, it presses it in pretty good. So, all right, now I'm going to show you how to turn it brown. We can go outside for that. So you're going to need gloves, and you need something big enough that you can mix this up in and put this down in, and you can get your hand into. I just cut a milk jug. I just use this so I can have a handle. I didn't cut all the way, but you can just cut all the way off. You got an old milk jug or something, just rinse it out real good. It's actually a water jug. So, you're going to need a little bit of water. It don't have to be distilled. I just have some here, so I'm just going to use that. And I got this burnt umber. It's going to be lighter after it dries. A lot of the ones I see online are too dark. The actual foam that came with these was lighter than the ones that are selling repros of online. Most of them. It's a little bit darker than the playset base. So it's almost the same color, but just a little darker. Not quite the same color, but it's the same. It's a few shades darker. It's not like dark brown though. Or I see them where they almost look black. They're so dark. This is pretty dark. This here is actually too dark, but when we get done, it won't be that dark. It'll be lighter than this. So you don't need a whole lot. You just need enough to saturate your sponge. So, and before we do this, make sure you shake it real good. I've actually done this already, but I'm shaking the camera like crazy. But just make sure you shake that real good. You don't want it all separated and thicker in the bottom and all that. And then, I don't know, maybe about half bottle. These bottles are like, I want to say like 60 cents at Walmart. You don't need the whole bottle, maybe like half of it. We might end up using the whole thing. We'll see. That's about half the bottle right there. And I add just a little bit of water. Not much. Maybe like a couple tablespoons. Just to make it a little more liquidy. I'll just stir it up with my hand real quick. You don't want much though, because if you put too much, it won't stick to the foam. You just want enough that you can squeeze it out, so your foam will soak it up like a sponge. So you just need it just thin enough for that. You try to stir it up pretty evenly, otherwise you'll have a little splotchy places here. That's probably pretty good right there. Alright, so we want to soak all that up like a big old sponge. And what I do is I soak it up, and I squeeze it and wring it out, and I'll do it again. And that really makes it soak in there real good. It took me a long time to figure out a perfect recipe for this. It took many attempts. You can't, it's hard to dye foam, but the paint method works pretty good. And make sure it's acrylic paint, by the way. And make sure it's not glossy. You want matte acrylic paint. This one's burnt umber. You can do different colors if you prefer it. I mean, you can make it green if you just want to make like a custom set. I did one playset. I can't find it at the moment, but I did one playset that was I actually painted the vines on the side, painted the inside kind of a light tan, and did like a try to make it a little bit more like a vintage collections Dagobah playset. I did like the foam green just to give it a different look, give it more color and stuff, different contrast. Right, so that's pretty good right there. Now, when we rinse this out later, it's going to be a lot lighter, so it's going to lose some of its color because we're going to rinse it out. I'll show you in a little bit, but we're going to put it down in water and soak up the water, wring it out, do that a bunch of times. That way the paint don't rub off on figures or whatever when you do it. And that's going to lighten it up, and it makes it almost the right color to be just a little bit darker than the base like the original. And the reason I go from memory a lot of this, I know that the ones I've seen online that were too dark, I have seen pictures, like production pictures where they were that dark, but I think they were just like a prototype photo for foam or something they used for the photo, promotional photo. And I remember when I was a kid that it was not that dark. And I've been doing these catalog videos, and if you notice on those, if you go watch that catalog video I did for the Empire Strikes Back years, Christmas catalogs, that's actually the right color foam that came with it. So the photos they used for the catalog photos were probably actually ones that came out of the box and was more accurate to what we had as a kid. And they were just a few shades darker than the base. They weren't like dark brown. They were just kind of a grayish brown, kind of like that base is, but it's just a little bit darker. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze out any excess. Notice how while I was talking, I was letting that just kind of stick. So just when you soak it all up, just let it stick in there for a little bit, and then maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then wring out as much as you can. And make sure you check it to make sure when you're squeezing this that it's even, and especially on the surface. You won't notice it on the inside so much, but just make sure the surface when you lay it out to dry here that you just kind of make sure it's got a good even consistency. There's not splotches or anything. And we're just going to leave that to dry in the sun. It shouldn't take too long. I usually leave it out here for about an hour. I'll check it if it's still not dry. I'll let it sit some more. But usually an hour does pretty good if it's a sunny day. And you want to make sure it's completely dry all the way through. You don't want, if you squeeze it, get you a fresh pair of gloves. If you squeeze it and any of it gets on your hand, it's not dry enough yet. So you want to make sure it's completely dry. And it's going to feel really stiff, like hard. But when we finish our rinsing it out and everything, that will change. So don't freak out if you're like, oh man, this thing's like a Brillo pad. That's all right. It won't be when we get done. So I'm just gonna leave this to sit in the sun for about an hour, and we'll come back. Okay, so it's been an hour. I came out after 30 minutes and turned it over. It was pretty dry on this side. On this side, it was still pretty damp. I could feel it through my gloves. So it feels dry on the outside, but it's probably still pretty wet on the inside. So what I'm going to do, you want to get, like I'm taking this old magazine that I was using to cut on. You want to put something and press evenly across it as you mash it so that it doesn't get splotchy. If you squeeze it, it'll get like splotchy and look like fingers. So I'm going to try to squeeze some of the moisture out of this. and just do it real evenly. And I just have this old palette out here, so I'm not worried about if it gets paint on it. But you want to do it on something you're not going to worry about the paint. It's got a little bit of wetness right here, I can see. I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to press on it for a minute. Try to flatten out as good as I can. Kind of milk it a little bit until I'm pressing hard. And let it deflate or inflate, whatever, and then press on it again. So let's see. It didn't leave much of a place there, so it must be pretty dry. Let's try this side. Alright. I'm going to press on the edge, because the edge won't be seen anyway, because it'll be behind there. Okay, when I press on the edge, it's still got some moisture in there. It doesn't come out when you press evenly, but if I press on one spot, it's still pretty damp. So I'm going to let it sit here a while longer. The drier it gets, the better it'll turn out. So wind's going to take it off. Thing is, if it's not completely dry when you do the rinse process, it'll break loose from it won't bond. So you want to make sure it's completely dry before you do the rinse process. So even if you let it sit here for several hours, it ain't gonna hurt it. The longer you can let it sit there, the better, actually. So I may just leave this sitting out here for a while and just check out later today, and then it's a process. I've actually made these in bulk before, so it's kind of a long time, tedious process for one piece. But if you're going to do several pieces, if you have some friends that need some of these, and you got plenty of foam out of that packet you bought, so if you want to make several, you could. Anyway, I'm going to leave this out here, and I'm going to check on it again later. You can see where I'm pressing on it staying dented. That won't happen once you do the rinse on it. It's just really stiff right now from that paint, but when we rinse off the extra paint, and what's going to be left is the paint that bonded to the foam, and it'll be soft again, and it won't leave indentions when you press on it and let go. I'm just testing the sides because this is really what you'll be seeing through the playset. The rest will be kind of underneath and hidden. So if you got to test it, test the edges. Alright, we'll come back in a little bit. The wind is actually picking up a little bit out here, so to make sure this is still here when I come back later, I'm just going to clamp this very lightly on the edge, and it shouldn't hurt it, just to do the very edge, just enough to hold it in place. So that should keep it from going anywhere. And we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so it has been about 4 hours now, so it's pretty good and dry now. There's just a little bit coming out, but that's alright. It's deep in the middle, and when we rinse this out, that shouldn't affect the surface part of it. So Now we're going to take it into the bathroom and just rinse it out real good and wring it out multiple times. Okay, so I usually just use kind of lukewarm water. And you can see it's kind of wetting that paint and making it kind of liquefy a little bit. And you just want to do this until you'll do it pretty evenly. So don't just like press on one side or something. I usually just try to wad it up pretty evenly and squeeze like that. And acrylic paint, so it won't stain your sink or anything. Just wash it all off when you're done. And just keep doing that until you don't see any color coming out anymore. Do the other side a little bit. Flip it around and might get some more out going the other way. Make sure I got all the color out. And what you got left is going to be bonded to the foam, so it's fairly brown now, but you may not be able to see it on the camera. It's getting pretty clear though now. And then I just kind of rub it all over pretty good just to kind of soften it up a little bit. And that broke up some more. See, I'm getting some more brown out now. So let it fill up really good with water. And then I'm going to let it actually soak in the water for a minute. So it get good and saturated. And let it get wet enough that it'll break any more loose paint. Like reconstitute the paint a little bit when it gets wet. So. Okay, you can see the water's just slightly brown. Alright, there we go. I'm going to use some really hot water this time. Do the same thing. Okay. That hot water making some more let loose. And it'll start getting a little lighter with the hot water. I usually do the hot water until I get it light enough that I like it. So it'll get a little lighter each time you squeeze it. You see it's still getting some brown out now. It might seem like an unnecessary step that you just go straight to the hot water, but I just found that it seems to make it bond better if you do it not hot first and get all that really loose paint out, and then do the hot to get it just kind of keep getting a little bit more out each time until you get it a little the light consistency you want. Because it was too dark with the paint color we used. But you're going to lose a lot of that paint color. And it makes it nice and soft too. Each time you squeeze it, it starts getting more of a foam consistency again instead of Brillo pad consistency. Like I said, I did this a bunch of different times until I figured out the best recipe for this. I think I about got it where I want it. What you got to consider also is it's going to get lighter once it dries. So even though it still looks pretty dark right now, when it dries, it won't be. And you might notice it's getting a little lighter in places where I'm squeezing. So when you start to finish up, you get it where you want it. Make sure you kind of do it evenly to kind of make it get its consistency, uniform color going again. And if you know which side you want to use to be up, I usually pick a side and say this is going to be my up side. I'll fold that inward. That seems to help the uniform color a little bit. Okay, and I think that's about where I want it. Now I'm going to run some cold water over it again just to kind of block what we got in place. And you'll notice it's not putting out a lot of color now. And the final time I do it, I try to squeeze as much as I can out of it. You rinse your sink off good so you don't have any stains later. Consider rinse right out. Rinse right off your sink because it's acrylic. And I just kind of do this a little bit to get it a little uniform. Maybe fold it that way a couple of times because it seems like where I folded it's a little darker. So. When this dries, it should, next time it dries, it shouldn't get any paint on your figures when you use it. So we've done it, but unless you put it in really hot water again, it shouldn't get any paint on anything. So then I take a paper towel, try to get as much more out as I can. Okay, now we're going to go sit outside again, let it dry again in the sun. Okay, so we're back out here at our pallet. We're just going to clamp it again so the wind don't take off with it. And you can see it's a lot spongier, like foam again now. And probably it'll pop right back out. You notice where it was mashed down before, it's already fluffed back out, but it'll probably not even mash in like that and have to work its way back out next time. I'll probably just pop right back out when we unclamp it. But let it sit there until it's dry. It shouldn't take as long this time. The sun's still out, so I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. It's already pretty much dry. It's just a little damp, but it's good enough to go. It'll finish drying later. So it's a little damp in the middle, but it's dry on the outside. And you can kind of tell it's kind of grayish looking. It's grayish brown. It might look grayer on the camera than it actually is. But we're going to go in here and do our cutting on it now. So you might can tell, because, well, let's put it next to the playset. You can tell it's a little darker than the base. So that's how you want it to look. It's kind of a grayish brown. I don't know what color that would be, but that's about how the original looked. The bottom of the playset has these pegs that's going to go on, and they're kind of sharp around the edges, which actually makes it cut a pretty good hole. You just have to be, if you do it without the without a cutter, you just have to be careful to get it in the right place. And I'm going to pop this part off so I can lay it down flat. And I want to use this side, I think. So this side is where I marked it. You can kind of see that marker still. But what you do is you got to put it, line it up so that it'll be kind of centered. And you want it to be pretty flat. And then just kind of push through. And you can see it kind of made a little round place where it took it out even. So those things are pretty sharp. So it actually serves as a pretty good cutting tool. So you can see you got a hole there now. And we'll line that one back up and do the other four. Make sure this part's good and flat so it don't have a sag in it or anything. Now kind of feel that peg right there. I just kind of push down right around it. When it surfaces, you'll have a little round piece here. You can take some scissors and finish cutting that off if you want, but you don't really need to. So there's the two I did so far. You can see there's just a little cylindrical chunk out. Just make sure you line up your other holes again if you take it off. Okay, so we got 3 more to go. Do this one next. And we'll pull it pretty tight over here if I do this one. One more to push through here. Like I said, just get right next to that peg when you push down. don't push down like over here, push down like right next to it. And it should work pretty good. I don't know if they designed those to be sharp so that these things would cut themselves as they put them through manufacturing at Kenner originally or what, but it's almost like they're designed to punch a hole in it. Alright, so we have our 5 pegs. And that's what it looks like on the other side, but we gotta do our slit. So I always do my slit after I get it lined up, so they'll be about right. I usually do like 2 1/4 this way and like 1 3/4 this way inch. So let me get my ruler. Okay, so I have a fine tip Sharpie, and I'm gonna just kind of give myself some idea where I want my marks to be. So I usually go 2 1/4 this way. You want it right in the center. So we go to about right here. And to about right here. And I actually punctured a hole there. And the original playsets actually had a little hole right where the line came to. They'd have a little round notch there. I don't know if you remember that, but so I usually use my little fine tip Sharpie to try to make a little hole there. And I think that kind of helps it from continuing to split off when it after you cut it. All right, now I'm gonna do 1 1/4 the other way. So this is my line here. I want to kind of make it about halfway. Gotta be about halfway. And this doesn't have to be precise. That's just about how I do it as a rule of thumb. I'm not sure exactly how long the slits were on the original, but I know about where they were. Right here. Okay. Alright. So we got our 4 little spots there. Now I'm going to slip this back off. Okay, so when you get ready to cut your slits, you should look about like this. You should have your 5 pegs, holes, and then you got your 4 little dots that you're going to cut your slits between. And there are little holes there. You don't really notice them too much. I remember on the originals, they had precise little holes about the diameter of a head of a pin, and so they were like punctured in there. But this should still work. I think the little holes, I don't know if the little holes were something to do with the manufacturing or if it was to keep it from continuing to split. But I hadn't had any issues with them continuing to split if you don't have the holes. So those little holes are optional. So, but we got our markings there, and you won't really notice so much as we do our splits here. So you want it to be pretty straight up and down. I use one of these just to connect the dots. Make a note of where my dots are. think I'll use this side so I can measure where my dots are. One at the 3 and one at the 5 1/4. When I mash this down, I'm not going to be able to see the dots as good. So I mash it down about as good as I can get. Then I get my really sharp blade and I just do a deep slit right off the bat. And there you have it. You notice it is a little bit of white in the middle. It's kind of like an Oreo cookie. I think that's because I don't know if you remember, I said it was damp in the middle still. So that's the result of that. That's why you want to make sure it gets good and dry, because if you don't, the paint doesn't bond to it. Once it dries on it, it'll bond to it. And then you can rinse it off and it will not have that white part. So that's basically where the paint wasn't bonded to it and it came off when I rinsed it out. So you might want to let it sit there like a day, just make sure the inside's good and dry. So you can see on this one, I let this one dry for like a day and it's colored all the way through. So I didn't really cut this one straight. So it's kind of, I consider this one a mess up, but I'll give you an example of the color there. I actually like this color a little bit better. It's a little bit more brown, and this one looks more like what was in the playset, but I actually like this one better because it's still a little darker than the base, but I don't know, it's just more brown. I like it better. All right, so we got to do our other cut here. So see if I can see our dots. Barely. Okay, there's the hole. So there's the hole there. Right there. Okay. So we'll do this other cut real quick and we'll be ready to finish this thing up. Over here. Make a real deep cut. So to get it one take, hold this side down so it doesn't push it instead of go through it. See what that looks like. It's a little off, but it's pretty good. Let's see, place it and go all the way through. And I'm going to open it up on this side just a little bit more on right there. And then I'm going to go in. These are pretty good. Actually, they're all pretty good. Okay. I just go in and make sure they're all just kind of cut up to where I wanted to cut it up to. And there it is. So if you push your finger down in there, you won't notice the white part. Like I said, that was my fault. I got impatient and didn't let it dry. I would let this dry for like a day. No kidding. I mean, just go ahead and just sit it there in the sun for like a day, and before you ever try to rinse it out. And that should make sure it's good and dry in here too, so that will bond. So that was my fault. But we're going to put it on here and see which side did I have the hole where I can see it. Okay. Here's my friend, my dog friend. Hey. She's from next door. She comes and visits me. She's a good girl. She's my friend. All right. And then you just put that back on. Now you can trim this up if it's just bothering you. This there. I usually just, if anything, I just usually just cut this corner off here. I might go ahead and do that. I don't worry about the other part because you're not going to see it. And that is your preference. So I just cut that off right there. I might do this one too because it kind of runs to the base just a little bit. But the more you have there, the more security you have that's not going to rip through to there. So I don't mind having a little extra. But this might hinder it from sitting down flat. I mean, it won't because it's spongy, but that way you know it's, within the base. And you just put these on. 3 here, 2 here, line them up, pop it in, and you have a swamp in your Dagobah playset again. I usually try to pull it kind of tight so you don't even notice that slit unless you want to use it. And when it gets, you always get its shape back here in a minute, that little dent will go away. And so there it is. Dagobah foam from scratch. Let's find this R2D2 figure to stick in there. And this is why I have the dog biscuits over here. Got my friend comes and visits me. I'll have to give her one here in a minute. So I got my little R2D2 figure, and he's like, "Oh, what's this? Oh no, I fell into a swamp." And there you have it. You can pose your R2D2 like he's in a swamp, just like on the box. So I hope that was helpful. You can experiment with different colors. You'll probably have a lot of extra foam left over. So you can just do like me, and I've done different colors. I've done green, and I've done like a lighter color brown, or like more of a brownish brown, really. The brown they use for this, I was going to do for this, even though this is more accurate to the box. But I couldn't find that color paint anymore. They must have discontinued it. The only one I could find was glossy, or maybe they just didn't. They're not carrying it at Walmart anymore. But they used to have one. I think it was just called Real Brown, and it had they had a matte and a glossy. You want to use matte. You don't ever want to use glossy on these. But all they have was glossy. So anyway, I had done this one before, and I decided which side I wanted to be up, so I left myself some marks on there. Like I said, it just bugged me because it was I just messed up that cut right at the end. It wasn't straight, and I went ahead and did another one. This is one I had extra. So when you're doing these, you may want to go ahead and do like 4 or 5 while you got your foam. Just go ahead and cut up 4 or 5 pieces. Just do them all at once, and you'll have backups in case you miscut it. You don't have to go through all that waiting process for it to dry and all that again. If you want to straighten these, I could show you in this, but it's really the same method as the video where I reformed the helmet for the Ferrex Imperial Officer for the Star Wars Black Series. I'll put a link. I'll put it up here in the thing. You can click up here, or at the end of the video, I'll put a link, and it shows you how you'll put these in some boiling water or almost boiling, and let them get nice and loose, flexible, and then you pull them out and straighten them up how you want it, and set it down in some cold water, ice cold water maybe, while it's straightened out, and it'll keep its shape. And you might have to do each one individually. I don't know. You might be able to do I don't know. It might be easier just to do each one individually because you can focus on it, not have to try to do, too many fingers going at once. So, and then that just pops up in here. And there's a clip right here. And that part goes in that clip. Make sure you got your little rod stems up through the holes. And you rock it through this hole and snap it in place. And that gives you your rocks that raise the little chests. It's supposed to look like Luke's levitating the chest using the force. So you want these little stems to go into the little holes right there. Sometimes they're tricky to get in the little holes. I think I got it. It looks like he left some chunks sitting there. And then he uses the force and it's like, ooh, they're levitating. It's a little hokey little feature, but it was effective back in the day. Just, yeah. Up from here, it really looks like they're levitating. And it came with this piece that you can stick up in R2-D2. And you can make him levitate R2-D2. It's easier to put on it and then put R2-D2 on it. So, and he's so heavy it kind of always wants to lean over real far when he does it. I might do better on this one for him. Try that. Yeah, it does a little better there, maybe. He's going to tilt to the side one way or the other, even if you straighten those out, he'll probably still do that just because he's so heavy. If you could get these leaning far enough this way, when you do the hot and cold thing, it might keep him from leaning. I don't know. A little better. Tell you, poor R2-D2 went through it on Dagobah, didn't he? He got levitated and eaten by a dragon snake, stuck in the water. I'm going to display this one day soon. I have all my original figures from when I was a kid lined up on that shelf in the Wookiee cave, and I want to get some extra beaters or something that I can use to display my playsets and have them kind of more in posable themes and stuff. So he's going to go back on my shelf. But I always liked the Dagobah playset. I thought it was pretty cool. And that was the cave. You can put Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker on that, have them lightsaber fighting using those little sticks. And you can look in there and see you can't really see it in the sliding, but it's got the little interior. It's got some snakes and stuff molded on the base. I hope you found that information helpful, and I hope may you all have foam in your Dagobah playsets. And if you want to subscribe, you can click right here. And if you want to check out the other video I was talking about, you can click right there. It shows you how to reshape the plastic so that if it's been out of shape. Or you can watch one of these other two videos. Thanks for watching.